Clarke's channel. This is Senator Clarke's channel, right? I try to give you guys tips on how to get a little bit more in the band in the box. But I also talk a lot about production techniques. And so with production techniques, one of the key elements of having a radio-ready mix, is mixing and mastering. So I happen to have today with me my good friend out of Australia. It's amazing what we can do through Zoom. Have my good friend Brian Richards out of Australia, who does. Actually, I'm going to let him introduce himself to you. So, Brian, take it away at the beginning.
Oh, hi there, everyone out there on Henry Clarke's channel. Yeah, Henry and I met quite a while ago now, and I somehow got some of Henry's music and thought I can do a little bit better, and gave him a copy of yeah, and I've been a musician just about all my life, and that led me from being a home musician to performing and then recording at home myself, and it just gave me an ear, I think. From over the years of playing, you become aware of how you would like a song to sound, and that took me down the line of mixing, and eventually mastering was where I'm at now. I prefer to master than mix.
So what's the name of your company?
It's called Sound Mastering. I was able to get that name. I thought it was pretty cool.
And where are you located at?
I'm located in Australia, as you said. I'm in a town just outside of a small town called Grafton in New South Wales. I live on 175-acre property. My nearest neighbour is half a kilometre away, and that's too close.
So you can crank the guitar up at night, right?
I can crank it. I can crank the Marshall to 11 and not bother anybody except the kangaroos. That's about it. It's
quite an impressive setup that we see behind you, but I won't talk about the gear at this point. But how long have you been doing this? You know, I mean, this is a commercial venture, correct?
Yes, it is, but also, no, it's not. I don't think I'm ever going to become a millionaire being a mastering engineer.
Well, I will become being a singer, so we're even, okay.
There are so many services out there that people can use. You can't overprice, you can't overcharge people. I might be working for $15 an hour. But that's because I love it. It's something I love to do, and that doesn't bother me that much.
So, what is the type what type of music is usually brought to you, and is it brought? Like, do they just send you an email? Is it over the internet? I'm sure it's over the internet. If you live on 175 acres, I'm sure the postman ain't walking it up there. So I'm sure it's over the internet. So how do you get your work?
Yeah, all of my work comes through emails, through the internet. I entered a competition in Canada about 5-6 years ago now. A competition that was about who could make a good master out of this mix. There was no prize at the end of it. It was just a lot of people. I work with a program called Samplitude, and one of the guys who tutors in Samplitude had this mix and said, can you see what you can do with this mix and send me a master and we can talk about it? And people were very impressed with the master that I sent. There was no prize, as I said, but I got a lot of work through that, which is great. Yeah. So you get a little bit of a name.
So what genre, if I'll just say genre, is your typical client? Is it rock? Is it country? Is it? I know it's not soul. I know it's probably not reggae. But I mean, so what is it?
No, you'd be wrong. See, the genres range from dub reggae. I've got a customer here in Australia who does a lot of dub reggae. So a lot of dub reggae.
You got to crank the woofers up. You got to crank the woofers up when you do that.
Oh, absolutely. You got to get the whole room moving. Boom, boom.
So here's the deal. This happens all the time. What is the difference, in your opinion, between mixing and between mastering? Tell me what you think between mixing and mastering. What is the difference?
Well, mixing is making sure that every part of that piece of music sits, that it each has its own space. That's either in a stereo field or 3D, backwards and forwards. And in mixing, you can make really big adjustments to things. Like in the drums, for example, if I'm going to be wanting the hi-hat to come through, I'm going to cut all of the low end out. of the hi-hat, because that's not where the hi-hat lives. If you in mastering, you can't do that. It's just very delicate movements. If you're changing something by more than 2 dB, then it's wrong. You need to go back to the mix. So the mix is making all of the instruments sit in their own space, being able to be heard, making sure that the main instrument is above everything else. I use automation a lot in mixing. If you're coming into a chorus or a pre-chorus, I'll raise the level by a dB. Coming into the chorus, I'll raise the level again by another dB, and then gently bring it down when you're getting into the verse again. So it stands out.
So if what I hear you saying is correct, then what you're telling me is that in order for you to do a good master, you probably need more stems from the mix in order to do a better master. Would you say that's true? In other words, what I'm saying is that, if I send you a mix right now, I've got music and strings on a separate bus and horns on a separate bus and vocal background, vocal separate bus, so on and so forth. That's okay, but that's not ideal. Is that what you're saying to me?
Well, it depends. It depends on the situation. Sure. If someone sends me a mix and you got to think people like yourself work on a mix, it's their love, they really feel for it, and they've got their own vision of what it should sound like in the end. It's not up to me to say, hey, I don't think you've done good on this side of it. But if I feel, like I say, I'm in mastering and I've got to alter some part of the spectrum by more than 2 dB, then I should be talking to the producer, the artist, and saying, could you revisit this section? That's very rare. I prefer to do stereo bounce mixes, again, because the people have worked on a long way. But I can also do stems. Stems is a good way to go, because sometimes, yourself, you've been listening to your music for so long.
Ear fatigue.
Ear fatigue. You think you've got a fantastic mix. You close it for the day. You come back the next day and you say, what was I thinking? Because I've done it myself. And
this happens. Okay, so here's the problem, the challenge. I'll use the term challenge, right? But here's the challenge that is so prevalent today that maybe it wasn't like this before. My question, and I go through this all the time, right, is do I mix for stereo systems? Do I mix for cell phone? Because there's got to be different adjustments that have to be made. And the thing about it is that so many people today stream music on cell phones. So you could do a mix in stereo that sounds fantastic, and then you put it on a cell phone or put it in the car, and it sounds like crap, So what do you recommend? Should we really mix for cell phones or what?
I would say yes. I mean, the majority of people these days either have buds or just listening through their phones. I use a number of listening environments. I've got a little Bose sound bar. I listen through the music through that. I go out and put it onto a stick and listen to it in my car stereo to see how it sounds. I pass it through my iPad, see if it sounds all right that way as well. You have to make compromises. So you're not going to get one huge bass coming out of a little tiny, one-inch speaker sort of thing. Yeah. So I'm mainly mixing for people with buds. So I'm giving it a good stereo separation, but making sure that when I press that mono button, I don't lose anything. Because if you over widen the mix and it goes into mono, boom, you might have lost the cymbals, the strings on the side.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So having said that, then what happens a lot is, like I said, you mix for streaming platforms. But there's also a volume thing that you have to deal with, right? Because sometimes, like we know for a fact that I know that the streaming service is compressed, and this is why I'm not so critical with high waveforms sending them over, because it's going to get compressed anyway.
Yeah. So I do submit my music at 48K, 24-bit. And I aim for 12 dB loudness units full scale. Most of the services out there wanted it 14 dB LUFS and 1 dB peak. And that's the big thing. As long as you don't...
Okay, with 1 dB peak. So you're saying that on my console, my mix should not go past 1 dB. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly, because then they will turn you down. Absolutely. So make sure you never peak above 1 dB. You can give it to them louder. They might turn you down. Like I'm only giving it to them at 2 dB louder. So they might, but most of the time they don't. Well, but they will not turn you up. That's the thing. You got to remember that they won't turn you up. They will turn you down.
So what I notice is that if I go to my Spotify channel, because I got quite a few songs on Spotify, you know, and actually I've got, sometimes Spotify has put me in some playlists, right, with other artists. And it's always nice to hear like a song by another artist plays, and then your song plays, and then a song after that is by another artist, right? And there seems to be no difference in the volume when I listen to that between the previous artist and myself. Is it because they have automation in place that's automatically pushed it down?
Well, they are aiming at that one level. So, as I said, if you're loud, they will most certainly turn you down. So you'll always be at 14 dB. But if you're applying it soft, it's not going to come up. So you will notice if there is someone who's put their music up that's not loud enough. So
would you recommend somebody if they're going to submit songs to Spotify or iTunes or Deezer or whatever, right? Would you recommend that they be maybe a little bit more on the hot side, maybe 2 dB on the hot side?
Yep, 2 dB on the hot side, and you're not going to notice being turned down 2 dB. If they do, I've got a couple of my own songs up there, which they haven't turned down at all. They've just left it there, 2 dB. But that's YouTube. I haven't put it on Spotify. So.
And are you when you say 2 dB, you're talking 2 dB peak?
Lufs, loudness unit, full scale.
I don't know what my audience and I don't. We don't know. Again, I'm talking about. I'm looking at a VU meter. I'm looking at a VU meter, right? And I'm doing mixing, and you know my VU meter is always set in dBs, right? You know, so are you telling the audience? Right. You're telling the audience that they should go no higher than 2 dB peak? Is that what you're saying?
No. You should go no hotter than 1 dB peak. But
1 dB peak.
Lufs, yeah. The lufs is the entire loudness of the entire song and the average of the entire loudness of the entire song. Yep. That's what it is. In your program, Cakewalk, it will have a printout in there to tell you what your lufs are. I'm sure it does.
Oh,
I used to use Cakewalk years ago.
It could be. I don't know. I ain't going that deep. I don't. It could be, but I don't know because I'm not going that deep. You know, it's hard enough to be mixing all this stuff. It's hard enough to be mixing all this stuff myself. You know, before I hand it over to mastering. And so, what do you think about? I personally, because I do so many songs that it's just not economical for me to pay a mastering engineer for every single song. So I happen to use Lander for my final mixes because Lander, for a price, I get unlimited mixes with Lander. I could get them at waveform, MP3, 320 bits. You know, I can do that. But again, that's an economical decision for me because I do so many songs. So I'm not trying to cut to your revenue stream, you know.
No, you're fine.
But for me, it's the best thing for me. And I'm sure that it's probably not as meticulous as what you would go through in doing the mastering. But I would say that I'm satisfied with most of the stuff that comes out. And most of the stuff that comes out, in my opinion, is radio ready. But what do you think about these automated mastering companies that are out now?
Yeah, I think with the way that AI is going, that they are going to be the way to go. I used one myself to put my masters up against and see how good or bad I am, and I use a mastering service. I've got a lifetime membership in it. Throw the files up there, get them back to me, and see how it compares to my own mastering. As I said, I could take 2 hours, even 3 hours at least, on mastering 1 3-minute song, whereas you can pop it up on the net and it'll be down in 30 seconds.
And it's a little bit longer than that, but yeah, I mean, it's a little bit longer than that, but like I said, and they give you different, and you can get it in different versions, you know.
Different versions, that's right. And if you don't like it, then you can ask for some more bass and, you know, more mid-range.
Right, you know. So,
back to the listening environment. Are you going to be able to tell the difference? You know, because the differences are very minute between a professionally mastered piece and one that's been done by AI on earbuds. Yeah, it's debatable. Okay.
Well, again, but then so is mixing in music. It's always going to be debatable. Nobody's ever going to totally agree. You just kind of go with what you think is what you feel is the right sound. You want to call it that.
Yes.
So for I have a lot of band in the box users on my channel, right? And of course they tend to do a lot of other things, but not necessarily at a high level. And also a lot of them are older musicians, and they are on a budget. So having said that, if they want to master their songs, what would you recommend? What plugin or what tool do you think that they should use if they want to master on a budget? What and what tools do you use? What are the basic? You don't have to get way deep in it, but what are the basic tools you use? And what would you recommend a person on a limited budget? What do you think they should have?
Yeah, good question. It depends on what sort of music you're trying to master. Rather, you're going to need a good equalizer, perhaps one that gives color. So one of the old, what they call Pultec EQ, a clean compressor, also a compressor that gives color. Again, something, a model of an old one. I master completely in the box. I have hardware, soft tube console 1, and console fader. And that's the only hardware I use, but that controls software. So I'm completely in the box. I use mainly Universal Audio because I'm part of their environment. I use Brainworks, and I also use Softtube, because they have all similar styles of software. I'm a software junkie and I'm trying to give it up, see? So I cut myself down to the number of plugins I use these days, yeah.
So these are plugin suites?
Yeah, no, they're not plugin suites, no. Brainworks, you have a yearly subscription, so you can use every single one of those. I was in that for a couple of years and I decided...
It's still a suite of tools.
Oh, yes, it is, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Versus I'm always saying Ozone advertised.
Ozone is a very good system, and it's getting better and better because of AI. I've used Ozone. To me, comes over a little bit bright, but that's only my personal opinion. And but there are so many like that out there now. Focusrite have a new suite of AI tools, which are fabulous. I've tried a couple of their EQs or their EQ and their compressor. Really nice, very, very nice. And it's a great starting point if you don't really know what you're doing. If you're not...
Yeah, that's the thing about it. If you don't really know what you're doing, and I think the kiss of death for all of us when we start talking about doing software is that if we don't really know what we're doing, we can really mess everything up. And unfortunately, when you click on stuff in software, it's hard to go back. I mean, I tell people at Band in the Box that all the time, is that they'll click on a function they don't really understand, and they don't get what they want. Then they try to go back, and they can't go back because this function made a permanent change. So so it's hard to go back. And that's the same thing with a lot of the tools. I mean, you can mess with that EQ or you can mess with that compressor, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can mess the mix up, and it's hard to go back. So, but
and these new softwares of with the AI have sampled thousands of different types of instruments and genres of music, and they really give you a good starting point. Sonable is another one. Sonable, very good, yeah.
And I have a couple of those. I have a couple of mixed effects tool sets, right? And it's exactly what it is. They have the presets. Isotope Nectar will give you a preset, depending on what you want to sound like. Is this a pop? Do you want a pop sound? Do you want an R&B sound? Do you want a reggae sound? Do you want a voiceover sound? Or you can do all of that through Nectar, right? And I've also got some Lord Elch plugins, right? Which really help for background vocals. They do a tremendous job with background vocals, where it's one plug-in, and you can put that one plug-in, and you can select that preset. If you want nice, spacey background vocals, you can select that preset.
And by work, I mean, it'll be very subtle. It'll be a tiny little bit of EQing. If I hear resonant frequencies in there, that is frequencies that are competing with each other, I'll try and take those out very, very subtly, so that opens up the mix more.
And that's the difference that most people who mix, including myself, we can't seem to hear the frequencies like a mastering engineer can. We'll do a mix. We'll swear that it's really, really top notch. I use whatever, And then all of a sudden, it's like I've sent you mixes before, and you've said, you got some frequencies in there that's just killing it, right? Or it's not working. And then you'll come up with some tool set of yours, right? And you'll eliminate those types of frequencies, right? So, I mean, when you do that, what type of tools are you using to eliminate those frequencies? I mean, it's not just a standard EQ, is it?
Yes, it is. I'm using FabFilter Pro Q. That can be very like a surgeon. You can cut out very, very minute frequencies, and without making resonant other frequencies above or below it. So I use FabFilter Pro Q3 quite a lot.
What about compression?
Compression, yeah, it depends. It depends again. I have my favorite tool, which is the Alyssa Alpha compressor. That goes on just about 90% of the work I do. I use it in mid-side for making a little bit enhanced stereo field. It's what they call a glue compressor. It really glues all of those things together. I also have tape emulation, an ATR 102, that I love to use as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean they go on every mix or every master that I'm doing. It depends on the genre, what I think it might need.
Okay, so thanks for your time. I mean, we kind of I don't want to go too long, but but do you have any final thoughts for amateurs? For amateurs like myself, any thoughts for amateurs on what you think, what they need to watch out for, and what they should strive to get out of their music?
Yeah, sure.
Amateurs now.
Decide what your main instrument is. If it's a vocal, then you want your vocal to be up front, number one.
I'm going to stop you there. And the only reason why I'm going to stop you there is because that's a country music idiom that drives me freaking nuts. It drives me nuts. Okay? And the reason why it drives me nuts, see, I've got my soapbox here. That drives me nuts because there are a lot of R&B and soul jams and funk music. The vocal is not the primary instrument. Sometimes it's the bass line. In club music, it's the kick. So I had somebody that said that the music should only be a curtain, the backdrop for the vocal. And that's just that's country music. I'm sorry. That is not R&B.
Yes,
that's not reggae either. Because with reggae, with dub reggae, I'm sorry, that bass line and that kick.
It's the bass line for sure. But again, you got to decide what your main instrument is.
I'm not going to agree with you totally that it's all about having the vocal. Because in my opinion, a lot of times people have the vocal too far out in front.
Make sure you're making a difference. Make sure you're making a good difference. That's the way I look at it. Is it a different sound? Yes, it is. Is it a better sound? Maybe not. So go back to the drawing board. It's really hard. It's a matter of learning, taking your time, listening to the styles of music or different styles of music, listening to a lot of different styles of music, hear how songs are put together, and use that in your style of music if you like.
Okay. That sounds great. Okay, well, thanks for your time. But before we go, I just want to say thanks again for taking the time out to do this. Right, I love the fact that we can do this through Zoom, and I'm talking to you in Australia, and here I am in Virginia, which is really cool. Even though it's 8:00 at night, it's 8:30 at night here on the East Coast. And what time is it there?
10:30 on Sunday.
Saturday. It's 8:30 p.m. on Saturday night in Virginia. Yeah. I am. And what is it where you are?
It's 10:30 on Sunday morning. Americans are all behind the times.
Okay. And finally, if people want to talk to you or whatever, how do they get in contact with you?
My email, I don't have a web presence. I just didn't feel it was necessary. I get a lot of work through my email and word of mouth around the music industry here. So my email is contact@soundmastering.com.au.
And I'll make sure that that's actually written in, so people can see that in writing. Okay. Thanks so much for your time there. And again, we will talk later. And we're going to talk anyway, because we always talk anyway, right? And I got to send you my new cut, which comes out. My new cut comes out June 30th, right? And it's called Ride With Me, right? So it's got some car stuff in it, Like, I love cars. But anyway,
I know you love cars.
Yeah. So thanks so much for your time, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Okay, well, most welcome. Have a wonderful Saturday evening.
All right. Okay.